Second of all, we did share in chat the links where we ask you to upload certificate that you received from ACI 6 to ACI 10. If you haven't had a chance, please do this. Mostly, you need to attend all classes to receive the certificate with camera on. And of course, if you are not aiming for certificate, it's even more beautiful. Just enjoy the ride, discussions, the teaching, the wisdom, and our absolutely beautiful and very special teacher, Venerable Gyelse. Um, so you need to be in classes for 10 classes in all classes. If for some reason you cannot make it, we all have something that unexpectedly happened to us. The two classes you can miss, however, you have to have a direct transition of this class and teachings from the person who were in the class. And you need to let us know that you missed this class. Please post in the chat and you did receive direct transmission. So this is a little bit of intro before our Venerable Gyelse start in the class. If you have any questions, my name is Natasha. Post them in the chat, post them here in the Zoom chat, and reach out anytime. And again, thank you, and I would like to welcome Venerable Gyelse.
Hello, everybody. And like Natasha said, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Have to get in all of those time zones around the world where we are in our respective homes, which is very exciting. I think we can reach our hands around the world and hold it, right? Keep it from going too crazy through all of our love for all beings. So welcome to class 2, and thank you for giving me the time to miss a class and to reschedule. I, in fact, was out camping by a river with my family, who I see about once a year. And we had a lovely, relaxing time. We got home late last night. And so all of us need to take breaks. All of us need to have vacations so that we can recharge, right? So thank you for helping me to do that. And Francisco is going to be helping me here today because, as you can see, I'm not in my own home. I don't have my whole computer set up. And so he's going to be running the slideshow for us today. So with that, let's start class. Here is our first class, first slide, just to remind you where we are, what we're doing, and what course we are in, right? So ACI 17, the Great Ideas of Buddhism, and each of the courses takes 2 classes. So we're on class 2 of part 2 of the Great Ideas of Buddhism, right? Reviewing all of these. Next, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. So again, to remind you, we're in the middle way philosophy, Madhyamika Prasangika, or Madhyamika. Prasangika is the higher school. There's 2 schools to Madhyamika, and we're talking about the Diamond Cutter Sutra. So this is course 6 in class 2. And the whole purpose of the Diamond Cutter Sutra is to get us to see emptiness directly, right? And I think that's the life goal of most of us here, if not everyone here, to at least have the direct perception of emptiness. And as Geshe Michael says, it's not something that happens to a lot of people a lot of the time. It's a very special thing that happens, and we have to plant the seeds for it. So we're planting the seeds partially by studying. We'll talk more about it by doing, collecting mountains of good seeds and cleaning up our mountains of negative seeds, right? So that we can directly perceive, be in the direct presence of emptiness. The first emptiness we see is the emptiness of ourselves. Right? And then all sorts of other things happen. Once we have had that direct perception of emptiness, I'm told, we no longer believe in things coming this way. We still see them that way, unfortunately, but we no longer believe that they are coming this way. And that gives us, think about what kind of freedom that would give you. To no longer believe in this deceptive reality, thinking that things are coming at us, that he's causing me this, she's causing me that, they're doing this, they're doing that. It's like, no, I'm causing this, I'm causing that. And to know that without any doubt, and then to be able to lead your life from that perspective. What a gift that would be, right? Really be a gift. Next slide. So there are five, well, we talk about all sorts of different paths. We talk about the three Arya truths. We talk about the two truths. We talk about the four thises and the five that's. Well, here we have the five paths. And these are the these are the five paths that each person who reaches enlightenment will travel. So it'd be really good to know what they are, right? And then we can get a sense of where we are with it. Where are we in that? So the first of the the first of the five paths is called Tsoklam. Say Tsoklam, Tsoklam, which means the path of accumulation. And what are we accumulating? Anybody remember? See, I need to open the chat. Oh, yes, here we go. Karma, good seeds, merit, virtue, merit, goodness, all of those things, and knowledge and wisdom, right? We're accumulating knowledge and wisdom as well. And there are two parts, of course, in good Madhyamika style. Say Neparjungwa and Nyenjung. Nyenjung. Nyenjung is a conjugation of Neparjungwa. So I'll tell you what they are in a minute, but our whole Buddhist career, right, can be divided up into these 5 paths. I'm just reorganizing my screen here a moment. And the one thing that we need to reach the path of accumulation, or Soglam, is we need to definitely emerge, which is what Nemparjungwa means. Definitely emerge. In short, it means renunciation. We need to gain some level of renunciation. So we're going forth, we're definitely coming out. And there are 2 meanings to definitely come out. And the first meaning is the next slide. Is to leave the home life, to come out of the worldly life, Rab to Jungwa. And this refers to definitely coming out of a worldly life, leaving behind, your old style of living, the life that you used to live, with all its worldly things which you thought were important. And it's always interesting for me, like when on this camping trip with my family, it's all about connection, but the connection's in a very different way than I have connection with my Dharma family. We we went floating on the river, we're sitting around reading books, we play games, we have food, and it's my old life, really. And it's not quite so interesting to me. You It's good to relax and it's wonderful to hang out with my family, but it's like I question myself, what is the value of doing these things? Is it going to get me to enlightenment more quickly? And of course, it depends, right? It depends. So, being ordained, I've definitely left my old life. I'm not married. I have a very small house and I do work, but those are not the main focus of my life. So we make a choice, and you set out and embrace a new life with meaningful spiritual goals and priorities. So rather than spending all my time playing on the beach by the river, I come and teach a class, which for me is really much more fun. Practically, this means that you probably have had some kind of big problem or personal disaster or disasters occur in your life that wakes you up. It wakes you up to the fact that nothing is going to work out in this type of world of existence, right? That's what's happened to most of it. It's definitely what happened to me so many times. And then it was finally like, I can't sort this out. This isn't working. I have to find something different that makes more sense to me. Of course, you can apply sheer logic to see that this type of life is hopeless as well. But something has to bring you to that point that you would even use logic. And that is the trigger for Rabtu Jungwa, coming out, the first type of Jungwa. The other meaning, a Nenjung, or Nempa Jungwa, c'est Nyande. Nyangde. Anybody remember what Nyangde means? Nirvana. Yes, I knew Roxana would put it in there. Nyonvu. Yes. Nirvana. So this is to come out or emerge from samsara, from suffering existence, and set forth on your path to nirvana. Seeing emptiness directly requires the collection of intense good karma, big piles of it, mountains of it, right? And there is a very specific list of the things you need to do that will trigger the experience. First, you have to find a lama, a real lama. That may take a while, and it should take a while. You need to check them out. You need to make sure that they fit you. You need to make sure that they know what the heck they're talking about. Ideally, it would be somebody who has seen emptiness directly so that they can guide you on that path, take their little flashlight and lead you through the darkness, right? And there isn't one Lama that fits all. So we have a nice group here. There are lots of teachers to choose from. And there's a lot of teachers even outside this group from that you could choose from. So find somebody who you trust, who fits you. And then once you have, serve them. That comes in all sorts of different colors. You don't have to be right there at their side, handing them this or doing that for them. You can be helping with their teachings. You can be helping with their students. You can be helping with any of their projects. You can be a bodhisattva in the world, bringing peace and kindness to the world. Isn't that the ultimate aim of our lamas? Is to bring the ultimate peace and kindness so we can serve the needy. We need to learn to meditate. Why? So we can see deeper things. Because it's only in the state of deep meditation that we can have the experience of the direct perception of emptiness. So we got to learn to meditate if we want to have that. And we just start out small, start out with 10 minutes. Go to ACI 3, listen to the different meditations that Geshe leads, and do your meditations from your courses. And there's so much material. You can collect it all in your toolbox and pull it out when you need it, right? Learn to meditate. And then, of course, the fifth one is studying emptiness. Study, 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 study emptiness. Next slide. Yeah. So you cannot see emptiness directly without a teacher. That's why it's number one on the list. Can you find a teacher? Is that something you just go out to the supermarket and go and find a teacher? If you find a teacher in the supermarket, how did they get there? You created them. Right? So create your Lama. Think about what you would like them to be like, right? What would you like them to be like? Maybe you need someone who's very firm with you, right? Maybe you need someone who's very loving. Maybe you need someone who uses logic all the time. So many different flavors. So design your Lama just like you design your partner. And once you've found your teacher, I think I'm going to sneeze. Maybe not. You know, serve them. And if you're able to, go and attach yourself to your teacher, even if they're in the last place in the world that you would like to be, right? And quite often, your teacher will push you away. Know that because there's some growing that needs to happen there. There's some growing. Number two is serve the Lama. What does that mean? It basically means to devote your life to the Lama. What does that mean? The Lama is trying to spread the Dharma and help people to see emptiness. And anything you do for the Lama is supporting their special holy mission. That's all, right? If they ask you to do something that you don't feel qualified to do or you can't do at that time, just very gratefully thank them, let them know, Lama, I don't feel qualified to do this, or I can't do this at this time, or how about, for me, what I did is, how about I do it for a year? I don't really feel qualified. Can we, can I try it for a year? A little bit of bargaining there. So still continuing to serve the Lama. And of course, the Lama will push our capacity. We may not think we can do something. And their job is to push us. They see something in us that we don't see. So that's one of the reasons you have to trust. So if you don't serve the Lama, then it's unlikely that you will collect enough good seeds to see emptiness directly. If they're a real Lama, and if they've seen emptiness directly, they don't need you. They don't need anything from you. They don't need your time. They don't need your money. They don't need you to drive them around. They are giving you an opportunity to collect the virtue by serving, all of their projects and what they're doing. You need to say in your own heart, I believe in you enough that I will serve you in any way. And this can appear to be abused by a Lama. I'm sure we've all heard stories about what appears to be abuse by a Lama. And that is why you need to check them out thoroughly. Check out their students. What do their students act like? remember that their students also need taming, like you do yourself, right? But check them out. Don't just jump at the first one. Go to their classes, talk to their students, check them out. Because your future is dependent on it. Make sure that you trust them, that you have faith in them, that you have faith in yourself, and that you are willing to do what this person asks. And if you're not, you tell them why. Number 3, serve the needy, especially old people. Why especially old people? Because usually old people get ignored. Sick people, old people, right? Orphans, those who need the most attention. Those who are in countries where war is happening, where famine is happening. Serve them as best you can. This also includes serving Dharma organizations like ACI or Five Houses or however we're going to be called these days. It's often a thankless task, right? You're often serving, especially like a place like Diamond Mountain, which is a physical place. But even here, all of the volunteers, all of the staff, all of the interpreters, they do service for us over and over and over again. And we probably don't think about it very often, right? We, we're not grateful and appreciative enough. But be that as it may, the volunteers, the people who clean your bathrooms at Diamond Mountain, or even at work, right? Just do it with joy. Just do it with joy. Because you, even if nobody thanks you, and it's hard because, and I know I have done it for many, many, many years, and it can be very thankless work. Know that you have the best end of it because when you do it with joy, like Francisco does, you are creating the causes to see emptiness directly and be of ultimate benefit to others. And you do need to take breaks. You do need to have vacations. And you do need to continue to meditate. Right? You can take breaks from meditating. When I was in 3-year retreat, I had 1 day a week where instead of doing 4 long sessions, I did 2 short sessions of meditation, 1 day a week, just to give the mind a little bit of space and relax. And of course, to take care of my cooking for the week and my laundry for the week and cleaning my space, right? It's okay to do that and then come back. We have to rejuvenate ourselves. So number 4, meditation. Yes, meditation. All of the spiritual paths that we attain will be in states of meditation. If you're not meditating, then you're not going to go through them, right? then you're disqualifying yourself from seeing emptiness directly. So the goal should be, not including the preliminaries, to be able to sit in a deep state of meditation, single pointed or analytical meditation, for 1 hour a day, or any kind of meditation, right? And if you can't do that, and it doesn't mean you have to do it now, work your way up to it. Start with 10 minutes, add a minute each week, right? You'll get there. Because we want to make the best use of the time that we have here. We don't want to simply end our life and die. We want to be able to transform this life and become an enlightened angel. And to do that, of course, number 5, we have to study emptiness. To see emptiness directly, you must spend many, 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 many hours in study and contemplation and meditation on emptiness. It takes time for these ideas to cook, right? It takes time for them to become part of us, which is not the same as merely intellectually understanding it. We have to cook it. We have to take the time. Next. So the second one, next slide, Francisco. Thank you. Is the path of preparation. Preparing for seeing emptiness directly, right? Jorlam, we call it. What was the first path? Anyone remember? I'm watching the chat. Accumulation. And in Tibetan, Tsoklam. Tsok means a gathering, right? A gathering of stuff. Like you might hear some of the older students talk about having a tsok. That means gathering all of these things together, people and food, right? And lam means lamrim. What does it mean? It means path, path. Yes, yes, Natasha and Marcus, thank you. So Soklam, the first path, is accumulation. Jorlam, the second path, Jor to prepare. So the path of preparation. So we're going to talk about this thing. So, I have a picture here of all the things you need to gather together to make a cake, right? We need to get everything, prepare everything to see emptiness directly. And one of those very important and powerful things that we need to understand is how we create mental images. So there is a subject called Chi Chedrak, if you remember, quality and characteristics. So there are 4 ways of looking at mental images, 4 Chis, and how we mistake the mental image for the real thing, which this mental image I can drink from, right? And it dang well appears to me to be a real thing. It's hard. It's got a space inside. It's got water. I can drink from it. So how the heck do we mistake it for the real thing? So this is preparation to see emptiness directly. When we begin studying Geshe Rock, we go deeper and deeper into how we are perceiving the world around us. We get deeper and deeper intellectual understandings of emptiness by using logic. So in Jorlam, we use logic to understand how our world is appearing to us. How the heck is it that we are creating images that seem real? How can an image appear real, right? There are these four ways of looking at mental images, and we're going to talk about them. And at a certain level of Jorlam, you get a certain realization. Next slide. So first, we're going to talk about these four chis. Here we've got Chi Rock. We have a little mini Cooper here. So the first is, we talked about the word before, Soklam, Sok, a collection, the whole, which is a collection of its parts. Like a car or like a body, which is arms, legs, head, torso, etc., right? We take these parts and we put them together into a picture, a concept, an idealized whole. This chi, Sok chi, or quality, so this chi, Sok chi, or chi, or quality, that's what chi means, isn't so important to see emptiness. And by the way, just so you know, the answer key calls it collection general. It's a general collection of stuff that we put together. Like, how do we identify a car? Does it have a specific shape? Does it have to have wheels on it? Does it have to have a windshield? When I first had this class on Chichad Rock, I went home and there I was living out in the country, which I still am, but there was an old rusted car. How did I know it was a car? It didn't have any wheels. It didn't have a steering wheel. It didn't have a windshield. It was all bashed up. It was rusty. I still labeled it car. What made it a car? And then the second kind of chi is rikchi. Sometimes, again, quality, translate as general, and it's the opposite of number one. with Ricci, we break the whole down to concepts and ideas. Like if we were to take the universe and everything that exists and break it down into categories, groupings, concepts to understand it. We would have animals, we would have planets, we would have stars, we would have water, right? Into different groupings and concepts. And we would put different things into those. So the first one, Sochi, was called Collection General in the answer key for your homework. And this one is called Type General. And number 3, Francisco, is Dunchi. This is a really important one. Dunchi is the actual mental image of an object. So here, chi is referring to a mental picture that we lay on something. It's an ideal picture that comes up in our minds when someone says something like tree or car or mother. An idealized image comes up in our mind. And it's always something that you've seen with your eyes or seen by using logic. So if someone talks about oak tree, like this picture, you get a picture of it in your mind. Yesterday, when we were driving, I saw a different kind of oak tree. They weren't big and round and bushy like this. They were taller and not so round on top, but I knew that they were oak tree. I labeled it oak tree, right? So you are mentally recreating what you actually saw in the past when you look at something. Like a child, when my son was, an infant, we had kittens. So of course we named them. We named everything in the house. And then there's a word and a mental image to put on that word. That's how we learn language. That's how we identify what's around us. Usually by our mother or our father, and then our teachers naming things for us. And then we agree to those names. And we have an idealized mental picture of kitten, of oak tree. Or again, as I said, it can be, you can see it in quotes with logic. And for your homework, this is called the actual object general. These are very obscure names. I don't think Geshe Michael would use these names anymore. They're not dishwasher names. It's like actual object general. Anyway, just so you know, that's what it says. And then number 4, Drachi. Dra means word. And of course, chi, as we've said, means mental image. Mentally creating what you haven't seen. So dunchi is something you've seen before, but a drachi is something you haven't seen. Like for example, if someone talks about the surface of Mars, you probably will form some kind of image in your mind. of what the surface of Mars looks like, even though you've never seen it. Or maybe you have, then you have to think of something you've never seen, right? You've only heard about it. And the answer key calls this one term general. Next slide. So the study of Chichedra can trigger the direct perception of emptiness. And that's why we're talking about it. It takes an incredible amount of virtue to understand it. That's why I really encourage you to go to your study groups and talk about it. Cook it, talk about it, think about it. After I had classes on Chichedra, I had a 5-hour drive home, and I'm like thinking about, how do I call this thing I'm in a car? Is it the dashboard? Is it the steering wheel? Cooking it, cooking it. How is it that I can call an oak tree, a redwood tree, a palm tree, all tree? They look totally different, but I still label them tree. When does it not become a tree? So these are the things you need to cook and think about and pull it apart, right? So we use an example of a quality. We use an example of car. So an example of quality is quote car or carness, right? So what is the difference between car, the car, and quote car? Where does carness exist? Quote car is an idea. It's a mental picture. A car, a car is over there, right? It's one type of car. How do we recognize an object as a car? It's a puzzle, and it's an incredibly subtle and important puzzle to understand. Through it, we become sensitive to the role the mental image plays in our reality. Say that again. Through this exploration, we become sensitive to how our mental images are creating our reality. Now, the masters on this topic are Masters Dignaga and Master Dharmakirti of the Sautantrika school. Lord Buddha put the keys to seeing emptiness directly in the works of the Sautantrika school, the second school of classical Buddhism. So car is a quality. It is a rikchi. We're not talking about a car or the car, but the idea, the concept, quote, car. the picture we have in our own mind of car. And what is characteristic of car? A characteristic, a Chedrak, we have quality chi and characteristic Chedrak, would be a Toyota. We understand that Toyota is a kind of car. But how do you know that? How can you recognize it as a car? Think about it deeply. Car, quote, car, as opposed to a Toyota, a car. Where is car? Where is carness? What does carness look like? Where does car, quote, car, stay? And what is something that is characteristic of that quality? Not a characteristic, but characteristic of. What's the difference? A characteristic and characteristic of. Again, we're trying to get at what makes us identify it as a car. And what is the relationship between, quote, car and a particular car? If you haven't done the other things we mentioned, meditation, serving your Lama, serving the sick, studying, this all sounds like some ridiculous concept. But if you have been doing those other things, something will go off in your mind. Something will be triggered. That's why you need to do those things. It's like when I look at you guys on the screen, what makes me recognize you as people and not turtles, for instance? It happens automatically, instinctually. And how does that work? How do I create category car, category turtle, category people? How do we do that? We are forced by our karma to see things in a certain way, right? In a category, group, pattern. But how does it happen? We can't, you can't just go, oh, because of karma. You need to understand how that karma is ripening that way. Understanding how it happens, how your mind creates these categories, groups, right? Objects. So quality and characteristics leads to seeing emptiness. Analyzing and understanding this way of mental imaging things is extremely important for seeing emptiness directly. So we need to talk about subtle impermanence. In the highest stage of Jorlam, you start to understand subtle impermanence, the subtle constant change in which things exist. You need to study this deeply, along with serving your Lama, and you will start to perceive the subtle nature of impermanence. Not just if you drop a cup on the floor, it's going to break. That's gross impermanence. But how is that object changing moment to moment? Chuchok. Thank you, Francisco. Chu means thing, and chok means supreme. The highest thing in the world for someone who has not seen emptiness directly, for a non-Arya, is a peak experience called thing supreme, the supreme thing. It is the peak experience for a person who has not yet reached the path of seeing. The final moment of Jorlam, right before seeing emptiness directly, which could go on for a couple of months or maybe a year or two. It's, that moment is not necessarily just a tiny one moment, but it can be a longer period of time. During that time, you've been serving your Lama. You've been studying like crazy and meditating. You've been serving those who are less fortunate than you. And you start to get realizations that are exploding like popcorn. Pop, 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 right? Usually in meditation, it's like, oh, that's what that's about. Oh, that's what that's about. Oh, that's what that's about. And it starts happening. And Chuchok specifically refers to the direct perception of dependent origination, how things are coming into existence. You're seeing that the cup that you are perceiving is actually an image in your mind. You're not talking about it intellectually anymore. You're not, thinking about it intellectually. You directly see that I am placing an image on this. It's not something that exists independently of me. There ain't no cup out there independent of me perceiving it. It's an image in my mind, me projecting that image in my mind based on some hints of color and shape, right? These are both cups. Do they have the same color and shape? No. But the image in my mind projects on them cup, two different kinds of cups. And Chuchok is a very profound experience and a signpost that you're getting very close to seeing emptiness directly. Chuchok leads to the direct perception of emptiness. Francisco, next button. Yeah, thank you. So even though we see 3 different images of cars here, we still call them car. What is forcing us to do that? How do we do it? Why do we do it? Lots of food for thought. Next slide. So Jetopyeshe, the wisdom of the aftermath of the direct perception of emptiness. Right? So first you have Chuchok, where you directly perceive dependent origination, how things are coming from you, how you are placing that mental image on an object. Then you have the direct perception of emptiness. And then you have the aftermath, Geshe. And during that time, you realize all sorts of spiritual truths. And you're kind of in that space of you're in that space for maybe 12 hours, 10, 12 hours. And those experiences are grouped together. They're called the Pakpe, say Pakpe, Denpashi. Pakpe Denpashi. Pakpe means of a pakpa. Roxana, what's a pakpa?
Arya.
Pakpa is an arya, so pakpe is an arya. Dempa are truths, and she is 4. So the 4 arya truths. So the things that you see, thank you, by the way, Roxana. The things that you see in Geshe are grouped together into the 4 arya truths. Until one reaches the path of seeing, you cannot directly perceive and understand suffering and where it comes from, or how you can bring it to an end. Next slide. So, of course, we have to talk about the 4 Arya truths, right? And pour some more water here for me. So what are these dunya, or what are these 4 Arya truths? The first one is, say, dunya, dempa. Dunya, dempa. Dunya means suffering, and dempa is truth. So the truth of suffering. Know that everything in truth number 1 is in truth number 2, and vice versa. And what happens there? You realize you're in a broken realm, the desire realm. You have a spiritual or yogic perception of other realms that are in samsara, that they do, in fact, exist. And that this realm that we're in doesn't work. It is 100% pure suffering. You realize that you have never made a true offering before. Our tendency as humans is to make offerings of things that we like, right? That we personally want to consume, food or drinks. You also realize that you've never had an accurate perception up till that moment that you had the direct perception of emptiness. Not a single moment of correct perception in our infinite past lives. How many there are, I don't know, they're infinite, right? Has ever been accurate. So those are some of the things we see about the truth of suffering. And while we're there. Then Kunjung Dempa. These are things that we understand after we come out of the direct perception of emptiness, right? Kunjung means source. And Dempa means, you guys remember what Dempa means? Truth. Thank you, Eka. Yeah. The truth of the cause of suffering, right? You have, during J-Top-Yeshi, you have the realization that you have never had an unselfish thought in your entire life. It's kind of depressing, right? Every moment of our life and everything that we have ever done, including our virtuous acts and thoughts, have been infected by a desire for something for me. And this is just how samsara works. What to do. That's where we are. We're in samsara. It's how it works. So even when you're reciting a beautiful prayer, you're probably focusing on, how am I saying it? Am I saying it correctly? How do I look to others? Does it look like I know what I'm doing? Right? Are they impressed with how much Tibetan I can recite? Like in Xuanzang's tower in Mixed Nuts, how properly can I read the Tibetan or not? Right? You know you have never had a correct perception in all your lives as well. You see it, and it's depressing. It's like, oh, even when I thought I was doing something for someone else, it was infected by me, wanting something from me, to get something out of it. You can also read other people's minds for about a day, which also can be very depressing. You can also do it at lower stages of meditation, but it definitely occurs during J-Top Yeshi. And it's depressing to see the samsara. It's depressing to see the selfishness and the suffering in another person's mind. And even if we can't read people's minds, we do see this, or at least I see it, or I project it. Let's put it that way. It's my projection, right? Selfishness and suffering in others' minds. You realize that you are, after you come out of the direct perception of emptiness, you realize that you are still perceiving, projecting deceptive reality and are having mistaken perceptions. But now you know it's not true. Even though you can't stop it in the moment, you know it's not true anymore. So that's, as I said earlier, a wonderful thing to be able to know after the direct perception of emptiness. You abandon forever the intellectual belief in self-existence, that things are coming this way. And the very last mental affliction you overcome are the deep seeds of the tendency to see things that way. That's when you flop over, right, into seeing things coming this way, no longer this way. So that will be the last mental affliction that we will overcome, are those seeds of the tendency to see things as self-existent. Next slide. So this intellectual belief in self-existence, Denzen means to hold to self-existence, kuntak, intellectual or conceptualized. So Denzen kuntak is the intellectual belief in self-existence. You will understand the true meaning of the word illusion. You understand that nothing is as it seems. but that you will soon reach a place where you won't see things incorrectly. And then Gyume Tabu. Thank you. Gyume is illusion and tabu means to be like, so to be like an illusion. This is a photograph of a creek near where I live in Arizona. And it has an illusion of the rock being in the water, but it's just a reflection. Right? It's just an illusion. So the true meaning of like an illusion is that you're perceiving things as self-existent. And after the direct perception of emptiness, it reasserts itself. And you know that perception is wrong, inaccurate, messed up, just, it's an illusion, right? And you can't stop those wrong self-existent perceptions, which you know are not true. This is the only meaning of illusion in Buddhism. There is no other meaning. It appears to be self-existent coming this way, and it's an illusion because it's coming from images in our mind. So the third Arya truth, say Gokten. Gokten. Gok means to cease, and Den is short for Denpa, for truth. So the truth of the end of suffering. So what happens there? You see the day of your own enlightenment. Cool, huh? You see directly that within a certain amount of time, you will become enlightened. Typically, it takes 7 lifetimes. And of course, once you see your own enlightenment, who's going to tell you some other ideas, right? You've seen it. You know it's going to happen. And you're also not capable of needing any worldly thing anymore. You become fearless. And you know, heck, I'm on my way out of here with certainty. You also, having had the direct perception of emptiness, become the Sangha jewel and the Dharma jewel. You have the Dharma jewel in your mind because the real Dharma jewel is wisdom, directly perceiving emptiness. You know that you have seen a Buddha, the essence body. We talked about those last week, right? The different bodies of the Buddhas, which is emptiness. And you know that when you are a Buddha, you won't be called by your old name. There's something important in that. Again, something to think about and to cook. If you do time and way, you can speed that process up. It doesn't have to take 7 lifetimes. It's not necessary to have direct perception of emptiness, to have diamond way experiences, right? You do need a really good, strong foundation to do diamond way. So we have 2 tracks for reaching diamond way now. We have the 18 ACI courses, and we have the 5 houses. Choose which one is the most comfortable for you, the one that you're most attracted to. I will say from my own experience, and I haven't done the 5 houses, but I did the 18 open courses and the 18 higher courses. There's I think there will be a lot more material and insights through those 36 courses than you will get through the 5 houses Diamond Way. So it just depends on you. And then the fourth are your truth, Lamden. Lam, we know is path, and Den is truth. See, you're beginning to read Tibetan. You can Lam Den, path truth, the truth of the path. The truth of which path? To bring about the end of suffering. And how does that show up? You have a direct experience of bodhicitta. It's very typical for a bodhisattva to have a direct experience of bodhicitta right after the direct perception of emptiness. And Geshe Michael has talked about it a lot, this feeling of this just huge channel of light from your heart, and you perceive every living being in the universe one by one, he says, right? And it's this direct feeling of love akin to a physical sensation, that sensation of this clear light coming out of your heart, radiating out into the universe, right? You know that you will spend the rest of your life serving others. You have a very clear knowledge that everything you do will be directed towards helping those others. Every waking moment of your life, everything you own, everything you ever will do again will be thought out and will have the intention of helping as many beings as possible. You also know that all the Buddhist books are true. There are 200,000 or more books in the Tibetan language. And you see directly that every single page in those books is 100% true. And you will never doubt it again. And then, of course, if that's true, you want to save every one of those books. You must ensure that this knowledge and wisdom does not get lost, because they're the instruction manual of how to become an enlightened being. They must survive in the world to be used by future generations, right? If we in our lifetime let those books disappear, it's like climate change, right? We're destroying the ecology of the whole world and leaving the next generation nothing. So it's up to us. So thank you, Roxana, for being a translator, becoming a translator of these books. I tried, but it just doesn't stick in my mind. I don't have the karma, so I can rejoice in others who do have those seeds, right? Maybe my next lifetime. You realize that Buddhism is the true path, and everything you need to become an enlightened being is there. You don't need to go looking anywhere else. And the future of Buddhism in this world makes or breaks right now. There's not many Buddhists left in the world. The real knowledge is reaching its end. So we have to learn it, realize it, and pass it on to other people. It's our responsibility to do that. So what does that mean? That means it's your responsibility to become a teacher. Right? And to teach it well so that others can use it. Another thing that's removed is tetsum, doubt. Doubt about the books, doubt about what the Buddhas, doubt about enlightenment, just doubt about everything that you haven't seen yet, that you kind of like, well, are past lives true? Can I get enlightened? You know, all that doubt is gone because you know you've seen a Buddha. You know that you just saw the Dharmakaya, the emptiness of the Buddha, when you were in the direct perception of emptiness. So you made your first contact with enlightened beings directly. And for the very first time can confirm the existence of enlightened beings. I know it's true. I encountered them. You will also make your first real prostration. I mean, it's natural, right? When you realize you've been in the presence of an enlightened being, it's not that an enlightened being is like standing there in front of you, but you realize what you have seen. And you are compelled to get down and humble yourself and bow with gratitude. You also will have a real appreciation for Buddhist images. You'll look up at a thangka and say, that's not a painting, that's a photograph. And you know it. And then you think, this painting was painted by someone who saw an earlier painting, by someone who also saw an earlier painting, but somewhere back along that line, someone actually saw this enlightened being directly and painted her or him. So they're not pieces of art. They are pictures of the people you will meet and who will be part of your family. And so now you have a different relationship with holy images. And you appreciate the refuge commitment that you took to take care of sacred images. And then the realization of the diamond. And this is one of the most important realizations. You're thinking of something that compares to the emptiness you just saw. And diamond is the one thing that comes to your mind because it's the closest thing, remember we talked about it, in the universe to emptiness. And so you want to be near diamonds. Maybe you've never been attracted to jewelry at all. You might be compelled to go and buy a diamond and offer it to the Buddhas. And this would be your first true offering. You have no other interest in making the offering. For once, there's no self-interest, right? But only an Arya can do that. You understand the two truths, deceptive reality and ultimate reality. Why? Because you saw it directly for the first time. You saw that ultimate reality is separate from and higher and more pure than deceptive reality. You see the general content of your future lives. You see that you will be born into good, kind families. You'll be comfortable. You won't want from anything. So from a young age, you will always be taken care of by perfectly enlightened spiritual teachers. Your health will be good. Your financial being will be good. Everything will be taken care of. And you won't have substantial problems in your life. Everything is set. Those are the major points of things that we can pull out from the direct perception of emptiness and Geshe, the aftermath. Right? So we just went through the 4 Arya truths. Now we're back to the last 2 paths, right? We covered 1, 2, and 3. The path of accumulation, the path of preparation, and the path of seeing. Now Gomlam, the path of habituation. And then Miloplam, the path of no more learning. So you must do all of the 3 preliminaries to see emptiness. You must leave this world. You must gain a deep intellectual understanding of emptiness by studying Chi-Chedrak, quality and characteristics. And you must develop the ability to meditate deeply. If we don't do that, you'll never see emptiness directly. Just be a donkey about it, right? Just do it every morning, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, work your way up. And we must, through all of that, get to the place, we will get to the place where we're seeing that things are coming from our mental images. That you're only seeing your mental picture of it. You have to meditate and contemplate on that. Then you can reach nirvana. At the 8th bodhisattva level, there are 10 of them. When you've already reached the 4th path, the path of habituation, habituating yourself to what you saw in the direct perception of emptiness. Basically, you've overcome your negative thoughts, nirvana, at that point. There is a very subtle argument about it, but we can say basically you overcome your negative thoughts. You are very similar to lower arhats. Overcoming ignorance has...
Anh Tí thì nằm danh chính, anh Tí.
Overcoming ignorance has huge implications. With overcoming what? Negative thoughts. The seeds for negative thoughts may still be there, but they will not ripen. They will not grow. That's what nirvana is, right? So the things that will never grow really, it has 2 senses. One is emptiness, because it never grows because of what? It's an uncaused object. It's a negative, it's a lack. Emptiness is a lack of something. It's an absence. And 2, because you have seen emptiness, you will get rid of your bad thoughts permanently under the influence of individual analysis. What does individual analysis mean? There are 16 points, of analysis after you come out of the direct perception of an emptiness. And we're not going to go into those today. So, this is from the reading, verse 15, how the failure to understand emptiness causes mental afflictions. So, Lord Buddha says, why is it so? Because, O Subhuti, there was a time when the king of Kalinka was cutting off the larger limbs and smaller appendages of my body. At that moment, there came into my mind no conception of a self, nor of a sentient being, nor of a living being, nor of a person. I had no conception at all, but neither did I not have any conception. For what reason is it so? Because long ago there was a time, O Subhuti, when the king of Kalinka got the evil suspicion that I had engaged in relations with his woman. And so he was cutting off the larger limbs and the smaller appendages of my body. What are the larger limbs and the appendages? They're talking about the fingers, and the appendages are the fingers and the toes, right? And I'd like to ask someone else to volunteer to read the next one. Who would like to do that? Natasha, please.
At that moment, at that moment, I practiced patience, keeping my mind on my understanding of the lack of true existence to each of the three elements to the act of patience. As I focused on the me, which exists nominally, there came into mind, excuse me, there came into my mind no conceptions where I held any belief in some truly existing me. And so I had no conception of anything from a truly existing self up to a truly existing person.
Thank you. And the next person. Eka, would you read?
Yeah,
Thank you.
gladly. Thank you. At that moment, I had no conception at all of any such conception that something was existing truly. At the same time, though it was neither as if I had no other nominal conceptions at all. What he's saying here is the following. I did have the thought that I would have to keep my patience. I did have the thought to take the pain on willingly and not to be upset about the harm being done to me. And I did have the kind of conception where I reconfirmed my knowledge of how I had perceived that no existing object has any true existence. Thank you.
Next. Do we have a volunteer?
I will read.
Please.
Why is it so, suppose, O Subhuti, that at that moment any conception of self had come into my mind? Then the thought to harm someone will have come into my mind as well. The conception of some sentient being, and the conception of some living being, and the conception of person will have come into my mind. And because of that, the thought to harm someone will have come into my mind as well.
Thank you, Francisco. Next.
May I read?
Please.
Here is the reason why it is so. Suppose that at that moment, any conception of a self where I thought of me as existing in an ultimate way had come into my mind. Or suppose any of the other conceptions mentioned had come into my mind. Then the thought to harm someone would have come into my mind as well. But the fact is that it did not.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, everybody who read. So you can see how Lord Buddha is thinking about things not being self-existent, right? But did the Buddha feel pain? Next slide. Yeah, thank you, Francisco. Did he feel pain? Oops, I can't see the chat. Let me bring it back up here. Yes, he felt pain. And he realized at the same time, he realized 3 elements of the situation. So we're talking here again about the 3 spheres that we talked about last week. So excuse me, what are the 3 spheres here? There was the king who was hurting him. There was himself being hurt by the king. And the fact that the whole situation was happening at all. And each of those has its own emptiness, meaning each was a perception being forced upon him, Buddha in a past life, by his past deeds or by his karma, right? By his seeds. The act, right? So this was an act of the perfection of patience. And during this experience, he did not experience intense pain. Or did I say he did not? He did experience intense pain. And this pain, it did not merely just like poof, go away by virtue of his application, of his applying his wisdom of emptiness. But through his response, using wisdom, he did not create any new future suffering. Yes, he was in pain, right? But he didn't react in a way that would cause him to have pain in the future. It's just like us not reacting to someone who is yelling at us so that we don't create suffering for ourselves in the future. Why didn't he feel any hatred at that moment? He didn't feel any hatred because he realized that the reason that this whole thing was happening, right, was that he himself had done harm to someone else in the past. He understood that. So again, if he had responded with hatred or any other negative thought or action, he would only be perpetuating the situation. And he'd get hurt again, right? So through his wisdom of understanding emptiness, he chose instead to break the cycle and not create suffering in the future for himself. So if we perceive someone coming from their own side, his or her own side, then we're going to respond with mental afflictions. Then we're going to respond with negative thoughts. And we will create negative seeds. And we will perpetuate the cycle of suffering. It's vicious. It's really vicious, right? If we can apply the wisdom understanding emptiness of the other person, of ourselves, the understanding of any negative qualities we're perceiving, it's due to the seeds that we've planted in the past. If we don't react to those, then we are really, truly taking refuge. We will not respond negatively. And so doing, we avoid planting fresh negative karma. If we planted that fresh negative karma, it just perpetuates the suffering over and over and over. So a true act of refuge is a true act of protection. So understanding their emptiness forces us to be kind to those who irritate us. And if we can do that, then all the irritating people in our world will gradually disappear. However, if another person is hurting someone else or committing some injustice, it's not correct to sit back and take no action, to do nothing. Your Bodhisattva vows require you to stop this person hurting another person. Yes, those seeds are coming from you. Yes, you're projecting it. However, you need to intervene with the motivation, with compassion for the person who is doing that act, and to do it with correct worldview. They are hurting themselves. They are planting the seeds to suffer in the future, right? It is never appropriate to respond with anger. You can respond with force out of compassion, but not with anger. Why? If you respond with anger, you're merely planting new negative seeds, right? So we need to apply only as much force as required, like stopping a child from running out into the street. You don't need to do it with anger, but you need to do it with force, and whatever force is required to restrain that person, to refrain them from hurting themselves. Think of the other being as your mother. How would you stop your mother? So why do things change? And why do some things cause other things? This class is going to go a little bit longer. Hang in there. Science is able to explain the how. It cannot explain the why. Why different things happen to specific people. It can't present a real cause. For example, sometimes people die of diseases stemming from viruses. They die of cancer. That's how they die. It's not why. We have been talking here about the why. Because of seeds. Changing things change because ripening seeds, those seeds going off cause us to see things, to project things as changing things. Changing things are themselves always changing. And so the karmic projections change. It's really that the karmic projections that are changing, right? And so things appear to be changing. It's not that the pen, for example, runs out of ink from its own side. One karmic projection, what our karmic projections changed from that of a pen with ink or a cup with water to one without. Right? Even the ability of things to function is a projection. Take medicine, take aspirin, for instance. It works for some, it doesn't work for others. Sometimes it works for me, sometimes it doesn't work for me. It has nothing to do with what's in that bottle from its own side. It has everything to do with me and how I have taken care of others in the past. So this is the why. The how is taking the aspirin, but why it works or why it doesn't work is dependent on the seeds that I have planted. There's no self-existent curing. It has no healing properties from its own side. We used to say it has to be loaded like a stapler. You gotta put staples in the stapler for it to be able to staple, right? So the point is that whenever you see anything change, move, or cause another thing, it's not happening out there. They are not changing from their own side. Your own projections are shifting, so things appear to change. So if you want to be wealthy, be generous, and be generous to the holiest objects you can find. So we have two teachers here. We have Master Huashang and Master Kamalashila. Master Huashang said that if everything is empty, then it does not matter how one lives their life. I can do good things, I can do bad things. And this is a classic wrong view because things are empty. You must live a good life, not the other way around. It's only because things are empty that seeds work. If things weren't empty of self-existence, then how would one's thoughts and speech and how we act affect our experience of reality? Another view of emptiness is called the apologetic view. It's also mistaken. Things are empty, but they still work. This misses the understanding that things work because they are empty. Your body can transform into a body of light only because it's empty of self-existence. So Master Kamalashila debated Master Huashong, proving that what he said was wrong. And Master Huashong converted to Master Kamalashila's point of view, that because it is empty, it absolutely matters what you do. And that is the end of our class. Your meditation assignment is to do an analytical meditation on how, because things are empty, we must then live a moral life. So that's the end of our class for today. It was very full. Thank you for hanging in there. And I hope you see, I mean, we all know how important it is to have the direct perception of emptiness, right? And we're all trying to have that direct perception of emptiness. I think it's, one of the major goals in our lives for many of us. And just going over it today, how incredibly important it is. And using the diamond cutter and the story about Lord Buddha getting chopped up and not reacting, giving us an idea of how we can be in the world, right? And why to be that way. So thank you all for being here. Thank you to all of the interpreters, all of the staff. Thank you, Francisco, for running my slideshow for me. And thank you to all of the volunteers, the recorders, and thank you for you, the students, being interested in this stuff and making this world a much better place to live in, due to all of you. And I encourage you to go to your study groups. There's a lot to talk about from this class and to chew on. And then I will see you next week. We'll have 2 classes next week. And until then, have a good weekend. I like looking at your faces now that I'm not looking at my slides.
Thank you so much, Venerable Gyelse. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
lesson. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much, dear Lama. Stay.
Thank you. It
Thank
was
you, Venerable Gyelse. Thank you
beautiful.
very much, dear Gyelse.
Thank you, teacher. Goodbye. Thank you for teaching. Please stay.
Thank you.
Thank all of you.
Thank you
Have
so
a good
much.
weekend.
Have a good weekend. We love you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.